Your hotel isn't empty." The voice came from the open boardroom door. 14-year-old Maya Ortiz stood beside a cleaning cart, gripping her mother's sleeve. 12 executives stared at the same red number. 68 occupied rooms. Daniel Mercer, billionaire owner of the Mercer Crown hotel chain, had just learned the company was losing millions. 8 hotels had to be sold within 72 hours. Hundreds of workers could lose their jobs. Vanessa Cole, his chief financial officer and fiancée, turned toward Maya. "This is a private meeting." "If only 68 rooms had guests last night," Maya said. "Why did my mom's team deliver fresh linen to 312 rooms after midnight?" One executive stopped typing. Elena pulled her daughter back. "Maya, stop. They already warned me once." But Maya opened the worn blue notebook her mother carried on every night shift. Elena had begun keeping it after 2 housekeepers were blamed for supplies missing from locked storage. Every floor and delivery was recorded. Beside dozens of rooms, Elena had drawn the same tiny triangle. "Those records were never authorized," Vanessa said. The reports before Daniel carried audit stamps, executive signatures, and his own electronic approval. The handwritten log carried only a housekeeper's observations. "Room 1814 received fresh sheets and towels 3 times this week," Maya said. Daniel frowned. "That room is not in service. It isn't supposed to be." An executive searched the hotel system. Room 1814 had been sealed for 11 months after a burst pipe damaged the floor. Yet Elena's records showed deliveries at 2:10 a.m., 3:42 a.m., and 1:17 a.m. Each order had been approved through senior management access. Daniel closed the sales agreement. "Take me to that room." Beneath the table, a message appeared on Vanessa's phone. "They're going to 1814. The elevator climbed with the soft rattle of Elena's cleaning cart. Daniel stood beside Vanessa, 2 security officers, Maya and her mother. He expected Vanessa to object. Instead, she asked legal counsel to meet them upstairs. "Chain of custody," she said. "If anything unusual is inside, we must protect the company from contamination claims." The phrase sounded reasonable. Most of what Vanessa said did. That was why Daniel had trusted her with the company's finances, and after his wife died, with the parts of his life he no longer knew how to manage. He had stopped attending property walks and staff meetings. Vanessa gave him clean reports, clear recommendations, and problems reduced to numbers. Now those numbers said Mercer Crown had lost $47 million in 2 quarters. The bank had warned that another failed month could trigger a review of the company's credit line. North Star Hospitality was offering enough cash to stabilize the chain, but only if Daniel sold 8 hotels within 72 hours. Every report blamed falling occupancy, rising labor costs, and aging properties. A handwritten log did not erase any of that. The elevator opened. A maintenance barrier blocked the hallway to room 1814. Plastic covered part of the wall, and a faded notice warned of water damage. Yet the carpet beyond the barrier was clean. Maya noticed first. "My mom's team doesn't clean closed floors." Vanessa glanced at security. "Please keep commentary to a minimum." Daniel saw a narrow track in the carpet where luggage wheels had passed. He stepped over the barrier. Room 1814 had no paper seal. The electronic lock flashed green under the supervisor's MasterCard. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and expensive cologne. A suitcase lay open on the rack. A white shirt hung from the closet door. 2 room service plates sat beside a printed conference schedule. Elena stopped at the threshold. "I told them people were staying up here." Vanessa lifted the schedule with a pen rather than her fingers. The logo read Meridian Guest Services. Daniel had never heard the name. "Is this one of ours?" "It may be part of a corporate booking pilot," Vanessa said. "We have several third-party channel agreements." "You approved them?" "My office approves hundreds of arrangements." That was not my question. Before she answered, the bathroom door opened. A man in a hotel robe demanded to know why strangers were in his room. His phone showed a 3-night booking at the Mercer Crown Grand, paid through Meridian Guest Services at more than the normal corporate rate. The hotel system showed no guest assigned to room 1814. Maya looked from the occupied room to the empty line on the screen. She did not smile. Being right had already placed her mother in danger. Legal counsel arrived and ordered everyone not to speculate. The guest was moved, and the room was secured. In the corridor, Vanessa explained that delayed reconciliation could leave rooms outside the main occupancy count. "Then the revenue should appear somewhere," Daniel said. "It may be sitting in a settlement account." "Maybe." Irritation touched her voice. "A pilot program with imperfect reporting does not prove fraud." She was right. It did not. Daniel turned to Elena. Why keep your own records? The app sometimes erases completed rooms after updates, Elena said. Then staff get blamed when supplies go missing. How long? Almost a year, maybe longer. And no one reported it? I did. She took a folded paper from her pocket. It contained the case number of a report she had filed through the company's ethics portal 6 weeks earlier. The case had been closed the same day. Daniel examined the number. Until that morning, he had not known Elena's last name, though she had worked in his flagship hotel for 12 years. Vanessa asked legal counsel to copy the marked pages and return them. Her voice remained calm and professional. Daniel wanted to believe that calm meant innocence. He also remembered how quickly she had looked towards security when Maya opened the log. They returned to the boardroom shortly after noon. The sales agreement still waited beside Daniel's chair. Vanessa placed another contract in front of him. This is the authorization for the Meridian pilot. His electronic signature appeared on the final page. The document allowed a third-party service to place corporate guests in selected rooms and reconcile payments at the end of each quarter. Daniel stared at the date. He had signed it 14 months earlier, inside a package containing more than 200 pages. Vanessa folded her hands. You approved the program. Daniel looked at the signature again. It was his. Then Elena opened her handwritten log to a marked page. The pilot may be legal, she said, but someone outside Mercer Crown approved last night's linen delivery. The approving account belonged to no Mercer Crown employee. Beneath the authorization code were 3 block letters, MGS. Daniel did not sign the sale agreement. He also did not tear it up. Instead, he placed it in the center of the table and told legal counsel to preserve every record connected to Meridian Guest Services before anyone touched another file. Vanessa did not object. She suggested the order herself, then asked that all requests pass through her office so the company would not violate guest privacy or banking rules. Once again, her answer was difficult to challenge. By 2 in the afternoon, lawyers were reviewing the pilot contract, while IT pulled a limited activity report from the hotel system. Maya and Elena waited in a service corridor because security would not allow them back inside without authorization. Daniel found them beside a vending machine. Elena still held the worn ledger against her chest. You can go home, he said. You'll be paid for the rest of your shift. Elena gave him a tired look. Paid until someone decides I caused this. No one has made that decision. They made it before my daughter opened the book. Daniel started to deny it, then stopped. 2 security officers stood nearby. They were not watching the executives who had approved the unknown booking system. They were watching Elena. Maya noticed. My mom said rich people don't have to look guilty, she said. They just have to look busy. Elena, is that something you taught her? No. That part she learned here. Daniel sat on the edge of a delivery bench. How often do you help with the room log? Usually on Sundays, Maya said. Mom reads the room numbers. I add the totals. Why? Because the app changes things. Apps do not change numbers by themselves. Then somebody changes them. Elena touched her arm, but Daniel let Maya continue. Completed rooms sometimes vanished after system updates. When that happened, supervisors accused the night crew of taking too many supplies or recording work they had not done. Elena kept paper totals so she could show where the sheets and towels went. Maya knew nothing about revenue recognition or settlement schedules. She only knew that on certain nights the handwritten pages listed far more rooms than the printed assignments handed out at the start of the shift. Did you ever compare the dates? Daniel asked. Not all of them. Why not? Because we were trying to prove nobody stole towels. We weren't trying to save your company. The answer stung because it was true. A legal assistant appeared and told Daniel the first report was ready. He brought Elena and Maya with him. Vanessa objected after they entered the boardroom. They may be witnesses in an internal investigation. They are also the reason we know there is one. That has not been established. The operations team had identified 46 active reservations placed through Meridian Guest Services across 3 Mercer Crown properties. 12 were assigned to rooms officially marked unavailable. The rest appeared vacant in the primary occupancy report. The bookings were real. So were the guests. But the revenue was not visible in the hotel's main ledger. Malcolm Reed, the regional operations director, joined by video. He described MGS as a corporate overflow channel for confidential clients, late group bookings, and contracts requiring separate billing. Why are occupied rooms recorded as closed? Daniel asked. The pilot uses inventory blocks outside the public system. Some properties may have applied the wrong status code. Across 3 hotels? We're still reviewing. And the money? Settled quarterly. Daniel looked at Vanessa. When is the next settlement? End of the month. That is 9 days away. which is why it may be premature to call the revenue missing. The explanation offered Daniel something he wanted: an ordinary failure, a badly designed pilot, delayed accounting, careless status codes, not theft. He asked IT when Meridian had first appeared in the system. The analyst hesitated. Vanessa noticed. Answer him, 14 months ago. The first major occupancy decline in Vanessa's reports had begun 13 months ago. Daniel felt the connection, but timing alone proved nothing. Elena opened the log near the beginning. The first triangle had been drawn beside a 17th floor room 14 months earlier. 3 more appeared that week, then 7 the next. By the end of the month, there were 32. The pattern had grown slowly enough that no single night looked impossible. Vanessa studied the pages without touching them. If these records are authentic, they may help identify when the reporting error began. You didn't think it was authentic this morning, Maya said. I said it was unauthorized. That isn't the same thing. No, Vanessa replied. It is not. Daniel watched them both. Maya was angry enough to accuse before she could prove. Vanessa was disciplined enough to hide whatever she felt. Neither quality proved guilt or innocence. Legal counsel warned that the company could not inspect Meridian's bank accounts without following the contract's audit process. The agreement named an outside administrator responsible for settlements. Daniel asked for the administrator's registration records. Vanessa said her team would retrieve them. I want legal to retrieve them. A small pause followed. Of course. While they waited, food was brought to a private staff room. Elena refused at first, saying she did not want a meal used later as proof the company had treated her fairly. Maya accepted a sandwich only after Daniel took one from the same tray. He asked about school. Maya attended a public magnet program and liked algebra because wrong answers could be traced backward. She disliked word problems because adults hid important facts inside unnecessary information. Board reports are mostly word problems, Daniel said. Then maybe you should read the small sentences. Elena apologized. Daniel did not want one. His daughter, Claire, had stopped speaking to him with that kind of honesty years earlier. After his wife died, Daniel had answered grief with schedules, tutors, and distance. He had mistaken providing for listening. Before Daniel returned to the boardroom, he told Elena she would not be punished for cooperating. She looked past him toward the security officers. You can promise that as a man, she said. Can you promise it as the company? Daniel had no answer he trusted. A lawyer entered with the registration file. Meridian Guest Services was not owned by Mercer Crown. It was a Delaware limited liability company managed by a corporate services firm and registered to a commercial office in Manhattan. Daniel read the address twice. Vanessa remained beside the window. Do you recognize this building? It houses hundreds of firms. You still haven't answered me. The lawyer placed another document on the table. North Star Hospitality Partners, the company offering to buy 8 Mercer Crown hotels at a distressed price, listed its acquisition office on the same floor. Maya looked at the sales agreement, then at the registration page. So the company saying your hotels are empty works next door to the company buying them. Shared corporate addresses are common, Vanessa said. This proves proximity, not conspiracy. Daniel knew she was right. He also knew coincidence was beginning to carry too much weight. He ordered legal counsel to issue a data preservation notice to Meridian and North Star. The lawyer asked whether he wanted to postpone the sale vote. Daniel looked at the bank deadline, the missing rooms, and Elena's handwritten record of the first triangle 1 month before his company began to look sick. 24 hours, he said. No longer. Vanessa picked up her folder. As she left, Maya noticed a page partly visible inside it. At the top was a Meridian settlement schedule. At the bottom, beside the next transfer date, someone had written 2 words, before closing. By 8 the next morning, Elena's handwritten log had been photographed, numbered, and sealed inside a clear evidence sleeve. The original remained with her. Vanessa had argued that the company needed custody of it. Daniel refused. Legal counsel settled on certified copies, each page stamped and logged in front of Elena. It was the first decision that made her believe Daniel might understand how quickly a worker's records could become company property once those records became useful. The meeting moved to a smaller conference room. Priya Shah had not yet been hired, so the first review was handled by internal audit, hotel operations, and legal. Maya sat beside her mother with a borrowed laptop. She had spent half the night entering dates, room numbers, linen quantities, and Elena's symbols into a spreadsheet. Daniel looked at the screen. You did all this yourself? My math teacher says patterns are easier to see when they stop hiding inside handwriting. Elena gave her a warning look. Maya corrected herself. That sounded rude. It sounded accurate, Daniel said. The spreadsheet showed that the triangles were not scattered randomly. They appeared most often during the final 5 days of each month. The largest increases came before lender reviews and quarterly board meetings. Malcolm Reed joined from Chicago and said the timing reflected corporate event traffic. Meridian handled late bookings that often arrived near month-end. Maya filtered the sheet by room number. The same unavailable rooms appeared again and again, even when public reservation systems showed the hotels nearly empty. Could housekeeping have copied assignments from the wrong list? Daniel asked. Eleanor answered before Maya could. My supervisors print the assignments at the beginning of every shift. The extra rooms arrive later through the app. From whose account? They don't show a name, just a code. Vanessa leaned forward. Can you identify it? Elena turned several pages. The code was M49. Malcolm said it belonged to a routing queue used for confidential group accounts. He could not explain why it bypassed the ordinary guest list. Vanessa ordered internal audit to review every transaction attached to the code. She agreed so quickly that Daniel almost felt relieved. Then he noticed she had limited the review to the previous 90 days. Go back 14 months, he said. That will delay the lender package. Then delay it. The bank may not. Daniel looked at the sales agreement waiting in his office. The bank can hear the truth before it hears another forecast. Vanessa's face remained composed, but she changed the instruction. While audit copied the spreadsheet, Elena showed Daniel another layer of her markings. A circle meant supplies were requested after a room had already been marked complete. 2 short lines meant the linen count exceeded the number of assigned rooms on that floor. She had created the system after 2 housekeepers, Rosa Vega and Lynn Tran, were accused of taking bedding from locked storage. Both women had been issued final warnings. Rosa had resigned. Daniel asked whether the missing supplies had ever been found. No, Elena said. But the shortages stopped after I began writing down every late request. That meant the paper record had not merely tracked the hidden rooms. It may have changed how someone operated around the housekeeping staff. Maya opened a folder containing photographs of earlier pages. My mom sent these to herself. Vanessa's eyes shifted toward legal counsel. Elena explained that Malcolm had once told her handwritten records created operational confusion and should be discarded after each payroll cycle. She had started photographing the pages before closing the ledger. Malcolm denied ordering her to destroy anything. I advised all supervisors to rely on the approved system. You said paper made people look guilty, Elena replied. I said duplicate records create liability, only when they disagree with yours. Daniel stopped the exchange before it turned into accusation without proof. He asked legal to preserve Elena's personal email metadata without reading unrelated messages. Elena agreed only after the lawyer wrote the limits into the authorization. At 10:30, security entered the room. The director carried a plastic evidence bag containing a stack of meal and transportation vouchers. They had been found in Elena's locker. Several vouchers were marked void. Others were connected to Meridian guest accounts. Together, they had a face value of nearly $4,000. Eleanor stared at the bag. I've never seen those. The security director said the locker had been opened with Elena's key. My key stays on my belt. Not during meal breaks, Malcolm said from the screen. Maya turned toward him. How would you know that? Elena put a hand over Maya's wrist, but the question remained. Vanessa asked security whether the locker search had been authorized before the vouchers were removed. It had. She asked whether cameras covered the staff locker room entrance. They did. Her questions were careful, procedural, and exactly what an innocent CFO should have asked. Daniel could not tell whether she was protecting the investigation or shaping it. Legal counsel requested a private discussion. 10 minutes later, Daniel was told Elena had to be suspended pending review. No, he said. If you overrule security before the evidence is examined, every conclusion afterward can be challenged as favoritism. She is the person who reported the discrepancy. She is also an employee found with financial instruments tied to the discrepancy. Daniel looked through the glass wall at Elena. For 12 years she had entered the building through service doors, worked while guests slept, and left before executives arrived. Now the company had found a way to make her knowledge look like motive. He returned to the room. Elena understood before he spoke. How long? Until the vouchers and camera footage are reviewed. Paid? Yes. Am I allowed to speak to my team? Not about the investigation. Maya pushed back her chair. You said she wouldn't be punished. I said no one had made a decision. You made one now. Elena is not being found guilty. She's being sent home while the people who hid the rooms keep their offices. Vanessa did not interrupt. Daniel wished she would. Her silence forced him to carry the full weight of a process he had spent years defending. Elena closed the laptop. Maya, pack your things. Then she faced Daniel. You asked whether anyone reported the rooms. I did more than tell a supervisor. From her wallet, she removed a narrow strip of paper with a case number printed across it. 6 weeks earlier, she had submitted a report through Mercer Crown's ethics portal. She described rooms appearing after midnight, unexplained supply requests, and assignments attached to MG41. The portal had sent an automatic confirmation at 1:06 a.m. At 1:17 a.m., the case was closed as unsupported. 11 minutes. Daniel asked who had reviewed it. The case summary showed only a department code. CFO compliance. Vanessa studied the paper. My office oversees the portal, but I do not personally review submissions. Who does? Daniel asked. I'll find out. Maya looked at the vouchers in the evidence bag. They searched my mum's locker after she showed you the notebook. The security director corrected her. The search was part of a scheduled compliance sweep. When was it scheduled? He checked his tablet. The request had been created at 7:42 that morning, 3 minutes after legal counsel sent notice that Elena's records would be reviewed. No one called that proof, but Daniel ordered the camera footage, key access log, and original search request preserved outside the hotel network. As Elena and Maya prepared to leave, Maya asked for the laptop long enough to save the spreadsheet. She opened the folder of photographed pages. One image had been taken in Elena's kitchen 2 weeks earlier. The open ledger lay beside a coffee cup, every page clearly visible. In the dark reflection of the microwave door, someone stood behind Elena. The figure held a phone aimed at the pages. Elena enlarged the image. The face remained unclear, but the person wore a Mercer Crown Executive Access badge. The photograph did not identify the person in Elena's kitchen. It only proved that someone wearing an executive badge had been close enough to see Elena's records 2 weeks before Maya carried them into the boardroom. Daniel ordered the image preserved and asked Elena who had visited that evening. Rosa and Lynn, she said. The 2 housekeepers I told you about. They came after work because Rosa wanted copies of the pages connected to her warning. Anyone else? A building maintenance man checked the sink. He never came into the kitchen. The badge in the reflection was too blurred to read. Elena's apartment building had no hallway camera, and the maintenance contractor denied sending anyone that night. The image created suspicion, not proof. By noon, Daniel had retained Priya Shah, a forensic accountant who had never worked for Mercer Crown, North Star, or any of the company's lenders. Vanessa objected only to the timing. An external review can take weeks, she said. We have less than 2 days before the bank deadline. Then she starts with the data most likely to disappear. Priya's first request was not for Elena's handwritten log. She asked for raw reservation logs, door lock records, city occupancy tax filings, laundry invoices, and settlement statements from every account connected to Meridian. Vanessa approved access to the primary hotel systems. The raw reservation archive was unavailable. IT said files older than 90 days had been deleted under a storage policy introduced the previous year. Priya asked who approved the policy. The authorization carried signatures from IT, legal, and the CFO's office. That doesn't mean the deletions were improper, Vanessa said. No, Priya replied. It means the missing data had permission to disappear. The city tax records could not be erased as easily. They showed Mercer Crown had paid occupancy tax on far more rooms than the company reported to its lenders. Someone knew the hidden rooms produced taxable revenue, but the payments came from a consolidated account. Priya could not yet determine whether the money originated with Mercer Crown, Meridian, or another intermediary. Daniel wanted immediate access to the bank records. Legal counsel warned that the pilot agreement required written notice to Meridian's outside administrator. Without it, the bank could refuse the request and later challenge the investigation. Every step bought someone time. Elena was allowed 20 minutes inside the hotel to collect personal belongings from her locker. An HR representative accompanied her. Maya had to wait near the service entrance. As Elena passed the executive conference wing, she heard Malcolm's voice through a door that had not fully closed. She kept walking until Vanessa answered. Move the pilot accounts before lender review. Elena slowed. Malcolm said something she could not hear. Vanessa's reply came more clearly. North Star only needs the old books to look sick. Elena took out her phone and started recording inside her coat pocket. There was a scrape of a chair. Do not let Mercer see the first quarter, Vanessa said. And the girl's records, Malcolm asked. It is not evidence unless we make it evidence. Footsteps approached the door. Elena continued toward the elevators without looking back. The recording lasted 23 seconds. It contained no confession, no mention of stolen money, and no explanation of what "make it evidence" meant. When Daniel heard it, anger moved across his face. Priya listened twice. "It sounds bad," he said. "It sounds incomplete," she replied. Vanessa could have been discussing a lawful reclassification of pilot accounts. Old books could mean historical ledgers requiring correction. Make it evidence could refer to authentication and chain of custody. Daniel disliked how easily professional language could shelter intention. He asked Elena why she had been near the conference wing. "To collect my things." Vanessa's office later suggested Elena had intentionally entered a restricted area to obtain private information. Access logs showed her temporary badge had opened only the staff corridor and locker room. She had not entered the conference wing. The conversation had carried through an unsecured door. Priya added the recording to the evidence list, but refused to use it as a conclusion. "It opens a question," she said. "It does not answer one." The first quarter Vanessa did not want Daniel to see became their next target. IT had no copy. Internal audit had only summary reports. The external auditor said supporting files had been provided through a secure portal that expired after 60 days. Daniel searched his own archived board packages. He found a printed binder from 14 months earlier, assembled before Vanessa moved most financial reporting online. The first quarter section contained an unfamiliar line item, Corporate Recovery Reserve. The amount was just under $9 million. Daniel had initialed the page. He did not remember doing it. Vanessa explained that the reserve covered disputed corporate bookings, chargebacks, and unreconciled group revenue. Priya asked for the supporting schedule. Vanessa said it had been maintained by Meridian's administrator. Again, the answer placed the proof outside Mercer Crown. Maya was not allowed into the review room, but she waited with Elena in legal counsel's office. Priya brought them copies of the marked pages and asked whether MG41 was the only code attached to the hidden rooms. Maya filtered the spreadsheet. A second code appeared 6 times near the beginning of the pattern, 7. Elena remembered those requests because they had required special embroidered linens that Mercer Crown no longer stocked. Priya searched vendor invoices. The initials matched Coal Harbor Reserve, an old purchasing account closed more than 20 years earlier. Daniel recognized the name. Coal Harbor Inn had been a family-owned coastal hotel his father acquired during Mercer Crown's first expansion. The acquisition had always been described as a rescue. The Cole family was in debt, the property was failing, and Mercer Crown preserved the jobs. That was the version printed in company histories. Priya asked for the original acquisition file. The records department produced one thin folder. It contained a purchase agreement, a foreclosure notice, and a confidential settlement letter with the payment section removed. The former owners were listed as Raymond and Judith Cole, Vanessa's parents. Daniel read the names again. He had known Vanessa grew up near the coast. He had never asked what her family owned before she entered finance. At the bottom of the foreclosure notice, his father's company had purchased the Cole family's debt 3 days before demanding immediate repayment. "What happened to them?" Maya asked. Elena told her not to interrupt. Daniel answered anyway. "They lost the hotel." The file contained a handwritten note from his father. "Settle privately before closing. No publicity." No settlement receipt followed it. Priya warned that an ugly acquisition did not prove current fraud. Vanessa could have joined Mercer Crown for reasons unrelated to revenge. The old account code might have been reused automatically, but the past changed the shape of the present. Vanessa had not simply advised Daniel to sell failing hotels. She was directing them toward a buyer connected to a hidden booking company, while carrying a history Daniel had never known. He asked her to meet privately. Vanessa did not deny the relationship. "My father died believing your family stole his life," she said. "Why didn't you tell me? Would you have hired me? That was my decision to make." "No, it was your privilege to make." For the first time, Daniel saw something beneath her professional calm, not guilt, but an old injury she had trained herself to speak around. She said Coal Harbor Inn had been collapsing before Mercer Crown arrived. Her father made reckless choices. Daniel's father exploited them. "Both things can be true," she said. Daniel placed the note on the table. "Was there a settlement?" "Not one my family received." "Is that what Meridian is?" Vanessa looked at him for several seconds. "Meridian is a financial structure you authorized." It was not an answer. Before Daniel could press further, Priya entered with a partial recovery from an off-site tax server. Thousands of hidden room transactions flowed through Meridian. The money had not gone into Vanessa's personal account. Most of it had been transferred into an escrow fund. The account name appeared across the recovered file, Coal Restitution Reserve. Daniel felt the accusation inside the name. Vanessa read it without flinching. Priya scrolled to the balance. More than $31 million was still there. The money had not disappeared, but no one in the room knew whether it had been protected, withheld, or prepared for something that had not happened yet. Priya refused to call the $31 million stolen. Not yet, she said. The balance existed. The account had not been emptied, pledged, or transferred out of reach. It sat in escrow under restrictions that required 2 approvals before release. One approval belonged to Meridian's administrator. The other belonged to Vanessa. Daniel stood at the end of the conference table while Priya built a timeline across 3 screens. She did not begin with the account. She began with the rooms. Laundry invoices showed a steady rise in linen use, even as official occupancy declined. Doorlock records confirmed late-night entries to rooms listed as unavailable. City tax filings reflected far more taxable stays than Mercer Crown reported to lenders. Elena's entries matched the dates and floors. Meridian's payment records matched the guests. 5 separate sources. None had been created for the investigation. That matters, Priya said. Independent systems fail in different ways. When they tell the same story, coincidence becomes less likely. Vanessa sat across from Daniel with outside counsel beside her. She had agreed to the meeting and brought her own explanation. Meridian, she said, had been created during a period of unstable cash flow. Corporate clients often paid late. Chargebacks, conference cancellations, and international settlements made monthly revenue unreliable. The reserve kept disputed funds from being counted before they were secure. Then why hide the occupied rooms? Daniel asked. We did not hide them. We separated them from the operating report until settlement. You reported the hotels as empty. I reported recognized occupancy under the accounting policy approved by the pilot agreement. Priya turned to the next screen. The policy allows delayed revenue recognition. It does not explain why occupied inventory was coded as unavailable. Malcolm, attending through video, blamed local operations teams. He said some managers had used closed-room codes because Meridian bookings could not be entered into the main reservation system without exposing confidential clients. Which managers? Priya asked. Malcolm promised a list. Vanessa opened a folder. Inside were legal opinions, risk assessments, and emails from 2 years earlier warning that Mercer Crown's old reservation system could expose corporate guest data. The documents were real, so was the concern. Daniel read enough to understand why the pilot had sounded reasonable when buried inside a larger package. Vanessa had not built her defense overnight. She had built it before the system began. The reserve can be returned today, she said. All 31 million. Meridian can be terminated. We can correct the occupancy reports, notify the bank, and postpone the North Star sale. Daniel looked at Priya. Can we? We can return what is in escrow. That was not what I asked. Priya chose her words carefully. We can repair part of the damage. Whether that resolves the underlying conduct is a different question. Vanessa leaned toward Daniel. You asked whether the money was gone. It is not. You asked whether the hotels had real guests. They did. You asked whether the pilot was authorized. It was. And Elena's report? Closed improperly. I will identify who did it. The vouchers in her locker. Security is reviewing the footage. The missing data? A lawful retention policy, even if it was a poor one. Each answer reduced the crisis to a failure of governance rather than a conspiracy. For the first time since Maya spoke in the boardroom, Daniel could see a path that did not destroy the company or expose the woman he planned to marry as a criminal. End the pilot. Return the money. Delay the sale. Blame weak controls and fix them. Vanessa seemed to recognize the moment his resistance softened. We can still protect the employees, she said. If this becomes a public fraud investigation, lenders may freeze credit before we finish proving anything. Vendors will demand early payment. Payroll will become the first emergency. It was not an empty threat. Mercer Crown employed more than 11,000 people. A righteous decision made carelessly could still hurt the people Daniel claimed to defend. He asked everyone except Priya and Vanessa to leave. When the door closed, he placed the Coal Harbor file beside the escrow documents. Was this reserve meant to repay your family? Vanessa looked at the old foreclosure notice. My family was never repaid. That is not an answer. No, the reserve was meant to isolate revenue. Your company should not have counted until its ownership was clear. Ownership between whom? Between Mercer Crown and Meridian. You controlled both sides. I controlled compliance on one side. The administrator controlled the other. And the name? Her expression changed, not with fear but fatigue. I named it after the debt no one in your family wanted to discuss. Daniel asked whether she intended to take the money. If I had, it would not still be there. Again, the answer was true without being complete. Priya said nothing until Vanessa left. Then she asked Daniel what he wanted most. The truth. No. Right now, you want a version of the truth that lets you keep the company, the employees, and your fiancé. Daniel resented her for saying it. He also knew she was right. He ordered 3 actions before the afternoon board session. First, all Meridian data would be copied to an independent server outside the CFO's authority. Second, a separate law firm would review every amendment carrying Daniel's electronic signature. Third, Northstar's beneficial ownership would be examined before any sale vote resumed. Vanessa called the measures excessive. Daniel signed them anyway. Elena and Maya returned under temporary witness protection rules established by outside counsel. Elena was still suspended, but security could no longer search her belongings or contact her without a lawyer present. Maya entered the conference room carrying the spreadsheet on a school-issued laptop. Priya showed Elena the reconstructed occupancy totals. The handwritten log did not match every tax filing or lock entry. Some rooms had been cleaned without guests. Others had guests who declined service. A handful of dates were missing entirely. The imperfections helped. A fabricated record would have been cleaner. Priya estimated that Meridian had processed between $46 and $49 million in room revenue over 14 months. The escrow held $31.4 million. She explained that taxes, refunds, fees, and chargebacks could account for part of the difference. Her team had not yet calculated the exact amount. Vanessa returned with signed instructions, authorizing the full escrow balance to be wired back to Mercer Crown. Daniel read the transfer order. If he signed beside her, the money would return before the bank's deadline. Legal counsel said the transfer could stabilize the company and give the board time to investigate without selling the hotels. It sounded like the responsible choice. Maya watched the adults discuss reserves, recognition rules, and settlement periods. She did not understand most of it. She understood subtraction. She turned the laptop toward Elena. Mom, did your records start before the first quarter in their report? Elena checked the first photographed page. Yes. How much before? Almost 6 months. Priya heard them and walked over. Maya pointed to the monthly room totals she had entered. The escrow amount starts here, but Mom's triangles start here. Priya adjusted the filters. The first 6 months of hidden room activity had not been included in the escrow schedule Vanessa presented. She pulled laundry totals for the same period, then tax payments and lock records. The rooms existed. The guests existed. The revenue estimate for those 6 months was more than $16 million. None of it appeared in the coal restitution reserve. Daniel looked at the unsigned transfer order. Returning $31 million would not explain where the earlier money had gone. Vanessa studied the new timeline. That period used a different settlement administrator. What administrator? Priya asked. I will retrieve the records. You had 14 months to retrieve them, Maya said. Elena touched her daughter's shoulder, but Daniel did not correct her. He pushed the transfer order away. No money moves until we know where the first 16 million went. Vanessa's voice remained level. If you delay this transfer, you may force the sale you are trying to stop. Then help us find it. For the first time, she did not answer immediately. Priya reopened the bank trace request. The missing period pointed to 3 companies that no longer appeared in Meridian's current records. One had been dissolved. One shared a registered agent with Northstar. The third had no public address at all, only a name. Cedar Vale Holdings. By sunrise, the investigation was public. A television crew waited outside Mercer Crown Grand. 2 financial blogs had published the same anonymous claim. A suspended housekeeper and her teenage daughter had manipulated internal records to pressure a billionaire during a distressed property sale. The articles included a still image of Maya near a restricted service corridor, but not the officer who had directed her there. A second post quoted an email Elena had written months earlier. After everything I have given this hotel, someone owes us. The line appeared alone, framed as evidence of resentment. Elena read the rest of the message from her phone. She had been asking payroll to correct unpaid overtime for 6 housekeepers. The missing sentence named every worker and every shift. Can we make them print the whole thing? Maya asked. Eventually, outside counsel said. Eventually is how lies get comfortable. Daniel heard the anger in her voice, but this time he did not ask her to soften it. The board called an emergency session before 8. Several directors argued that Daniel had compromised the company by involving Elena and Maya in a financial investigation. One cited the leaked photograph. Another said lenders were questioning whether Mercer Crown could control its own information. Vanessa joined remotely from legal. She looked rested. "I recommend a temporary separation of duties," she said. "Daniel should remain chief executive, but financial access should move to the special committee until the investigation is complete." Daniel understood the elegance of the proposal. She was not trying to remove him. She was presenting herself as the person willing to protect the company from personal conflict. The motion passed. Within minutes, Daniel lost direct access to Meridian files, bank correspondence, and North Star due diligence records. Priya's credentials were suspended pending a new authorization from the committee. The investigation still existed, but its investigators could no longer reach the evidence. Daniel called it retaliation. The board chair called it risk management. Outside the meeting, Priya showed him the data preservation receipts. The independent server already held copies of the lock records, tax files, ethics portal logs, and current Meridian transactions. It did not hold the missing 6-month bank trail. Vanessa still controlled the path to that history. Before noon, Malcolm Reed requested a formal interview. He appeared in person for the first time, accompanied by his attorney. His jacket hung badly across his shoulders, and he avoided looking at Elena. Malcolm admitted he had expanded Meridian beyond the original pilot. He said corporate clients preferred confidential booking channels, and regional managers were under pressure to improve revenue without overloading the aging reservation system. He had instructed hotels to classify some rooms as unavailable. He had delayed settlement entries. He had ordered housekeeping supervisors to stop keeping duplicate paper records. Vanessa, he said, knew Meridian existed, but did not know how far he had taken it. "Why would you do that?" the committee chair asked. "To protect the properties from missing targets. By making occupancy look worse." Malcolm swallowed. The operating reports were temporary. The cash would reconcile later. Priya, allowed into the room only as an observer, asked when he first received control of MG41. "About 6 months after launch." That matched the access logs. The hidden rooms began before Malcolm had authority over the code. His attorney objected that the question exceeded the interview scope. Vanessa said nothing. Malcolm then produced a signed delegation memo giving him discretion over Meridian's daily operations. Daniel's electronic approval appeared at the bottom, another decision carrying his signature that he did not remember making. The special committee accepted Malcolm's statement as a plausible explanation. If a regional director had exceeded authority, the company could dismiss him, restore the funds, correct the reports, and avoid accusing its CFO without proof. It was the second clean ending offered in less than a day. Daniel wanted to reject it, but wanting was not evidence. Malcolm was placed on administrative leave. The committee drafted a statement describing the crisis as an unauthorized operational expansion by one executive. Vanessa recommended that Elena's suspension continue until the voucher inquiry ended. She also proposed restoring Elena's lost pay immediately and offering Maya a fully funded place in a private academic program. The offer came through lawyers, written in language that never mentioned silence. It required Elena to acknowledge that her handwritten record was informal, might contain errors, and should not be treated as a corporate audit. Elena read the page twice. "They are not paying for school," she said. "They are buying a sentence." The lawyer explained that the agreement did not prevent her from cooperating with regulators. "It only changes what people think she saw," Maya said. Daniel advised Elena not to sign. Vanessa's counsel accused him of interfering with an employee settlement while under a conflict restriction. Elena handed the agreement back without Daniel's help. "My daughter's education is not a refund for my name." That afternoon, the locker room footage was finally released. The camera showed Elena entering with her key at 5:48 a.m. She left 7 minutes later. At 6:11, a security supervisor opened the locker area with a master credential. The camera angle did not show the individual lockers. The supervisor said he was conducting a routine inspection. The request for that inspection had been created at 7:42, more than an hour after he entered. Someone had backdated the authorization process, but the footage did not show who placed the vouchers. The footage weakened the case against Elena without clearing everything. Priya turned back to the ethics portal case number Elena had saved. Although the report itself had been closed, the platform kept an immutable audit trail for regulatory reasons. The special committee refused immediate access, citing the new separation order. Daniel contacted the software vendor directly. The vendor would release the trail only to an authorized compliance officer, a court, or the company's outside counsel. Outside counsel had been appointed by the special committee. The committee scheduled a review for the following morning. By then, the North Star vote might already be complete. Maya listened from the corner of Daniel's temporary office. Why does every rule help the person who already has the password? Rules are supposed to protect everyone, Daniel said. Then why do they keep protecting the same side? He had no answer that would not sound like an excuse. Priya searched the records they still controlled. She compared the first triangle in Elena's log, the creation date of MG41, Malcolm's access grant, and the ethics report. Malcolm could have managed the operation later. He could not have started it. At 6:20 that evening, an assistant from the software vendor called Priya from a personal number. She could not release the audit file, but she could confirm its routing structure. Elena's report had not gone to regional operations. It had bypassed Malcolm entirely. The submission was routed automatically according to the subject Elena selected: financial reporting and guest account manipulation. That category went to CFO compliance. At 1:08 a.m., someone opened the report. At 1:12, the classification changed from financial misconduct to inventory discrepancy. At 1:17, it was closed. The user identification was masked behind a department credential. Priya asked whether the credential could be traced. Only with the full audit package, the assistant said. Daniel requested an emergency preservation order through outside counsel. The committee chair refused to release the file before the scheduled review. Then Maya reopened the original confirmation email Elena had saved with the photographed pages. On the phone, the message header had been collapsed. Maya expanded it. The routing receipt showed that the portal had automatically copied one address when the report was submitted: vcole@mercercrown.com. Daniel forwarded the header to Priya. She did not call it proof. The address might have been a shared compliance alias, rather than proof that Vanessa personally opened the report. But it destroyed one part of Malcolm's story. Vanessa's office had not learned about Elena's concerns after the boardroom confrontation. It had received them 6 weeks earlier. Priya checked the vendor's routing map one more time. The masked department credential that reclassified the report had been issued to a single executive device. That device belonged to Vanessa Cole. The special committee reconvened at 7 that evening. North Star's lawyers had delivered a new deadline: approve the sale by 8 the following day or lose the offer. The bank added its own warning. If Mercer Crown failed to show a credible stabilization plan, it could review the company's credit line before payroll cleared. Daniel was allowed into the meeting but not into the financial system. Vanessa attended in person. She denied using the device that closed Elena's ethics report. Her executive phone, she said, was often handled by assistants during overnight travel. The credential showed which device processed the case, not whose hand touched the screen. Outside counsel agreed. The audit trail damaged her explanation. It did not prove intent. Priya shifted the investigation to Cedar Vale Holdings. The company had no public office, listed employees, or visible hotel assets. Its registered agent represented hundreds of trusts. A subpoena could reveal its owners, but not before the sale vote. The missing Meridian revenue had moved through 3 settlement accounts. From there, payments were bundled into transfers carrying the same reference numbers as North Star capital calls. The amounts differed, but the dates aligned within 48 hours. Could that happen by chance? Daniel asked. Once, yes, Priya said. 9 times is harder to explain. Vanessa examined the chart. Capital calls follow market dates. Similar timing does not establish common ownership. Then help us identify Cedar Vale. I have no authority over its administrator. You knew enough to name a reserve after your family. That does not make every company with the word Vale mine. Maya sat outside with Elena because the committee had barred minors from the session. Elena touched the suspension badge clipped to her coat. You do not have to keep carrying my fight. It became mine when they called you a thief. Inside, Daniel asked the committee to delay the sale until Cedar Vale's ownership was confirmed. The chair refused. Without stronger evidence, stopping the transaction could expose Mercer Crown to shareholder claims. Daniel realized procedure would not give him time. He needed someone inside the operation to move. After the meeting, he prepared 3 evidence transfer notices. Each named a different storage location for the original linen records, Meridian settlement printouts, and photographs of Elena's records. Malcolm's attorney was told the records would be moved to the airport hotel. The special committee was told they would be stored with outside counsel downtown. Vanessa's office received notice that the evidence would be transferred that night to a secure room inside Mercer Crown Ground. Priya objected. If someone acts, the defense will call this entrapment. We are not asking anyone to take anything, Daniel said. Outside counsel approved only after security agreed not to confront anyone without a documented access violation. Daniel signed the plan under his own name. For once, he understood exactly what he was authorizing. That afternoon, North Star's administrator provided a partial disclosure. It did not identify Cedar Vale's owner, but listed a private mailbox tied to a family office in the town where Vanessa's mother had lived after Cole Harbor Inn was lost. Still indirect, Priya also found that Cedar Vale had funded North Star on the same mornings. Meridian's oldest settlement accounts were emptied. The bank references were truncated, so she could not prove the money was identical. She marked the connection as probable, not verified. Daniel respected the distinction. It also terrified him. The truth was becoming clearer faster than the evidence became usable. At 6, North Star issued a statement saying its offer protected jobs, while Mercer Crown's leadership allowed personal allegations and unverified employee records to endanger workers. Reporters returned to Elena's apartment building. One asked whether she expected money from Daniel. Another accused Maya of accessing confidential files. Daniel offered private security. No, Elena said. Then they will say you bought us. What do you need? The truth to move faster. At 9:14, the secure records room at Mercer Crown Grand registered an executive-level access attempt. The credential belonged to Malcolm. Security watched as he entered through the service corridor carrying an empty document case. He had been told the evidence was stored at the airport hotel. Someone else had sent him to the Grand. Malcolm tried the inner door twice. When security approached, he placed the case on the floor and asked for his attorney. Daniel arrived with outside counsel. They showed him the 3 transfer notices. His face changed when he saw the address given only to Vanessa's office. I was told the records were being moved here, he said. By whom? Malcolm looked toward the camera. My attorney needs to be present. Outside counsel reminded him he could leave, but the access attempt would be preserved. Malcolm sat down. For months, he said, Vanessa had described Meridian as a restitution structure. She told him the Mercer family had built its expansion on unpaid settlements and that the hidden revenue would correct old wrongs after North Star acquired the properties. He believed the hotels would remain open. He also admitted sending Vanessa the warning about room 1814 after a security supervisor told him Daniel was taking the group upstairs. What did you believe would happen to Elena? Daniel asked. I was told the handwritten records could collapse the transaction before the reserve was restored. So you planted the vouchers? No. Malcolm admitted he had given Vanessa's compliance director a list of Elena's shifts and locker habits. He said he never asked why. It was the language people used when they wanted responsibility to end one step before consequence. Then Malcolm produced a message Vanessa had sent through an encrypted executive channel. Retrieve the originals before they are misread again. The message did not say steal. It did not identify the records, but it contained the secure room location shared only with her office. Priya showed him the Cedar Vale transfers. He recognized the company as one of North Star's anchor investors. Vanessa had told him it represented descendants of families harmed by early Mercer acquisitions. Who controls it? Priya asked. Malcolm did not know. Then he remembered that every Cedar Vale authorization arrived through the same family office portal Vanessa used for her mother's estate. Daniel found Vanessa in the empty boardroom before midnight. He did not show her Malcolm's statement. Does your family control Cedar Vale? Vanessa removed her coat and placed it over a chair. My family controlled nothing when yours took our hotel. Answer the question I asked. No, it is the question beneath all your others. She said Daniel wanted to treat the past as regrettable history while keeping every advantage it purchased. She had waited years for Mercer Crown to examine the old acquisitions. Daniel had never asked. He did not deny it. My father may have stolen your family's future, he said. That does not give you the right to take payroll from people who had nothing to do with him. The hotels were never going to close. You cannot promise that after hiding the buyer. Vanessa's composure thinned. North Star would have kept them alive and put them under your control? She looked toward the city lights. Daniel understood before she answered. At 7:59 the next morning, the board would vote. Priya still needed formal proof tying Vanessa to Cedar Vale. Without it, Daniel had motive, a pattern, a compromised report, and a message directing Malcolm toward protected evidence. Enough to accuse, not yet enough to win. At 7:48 the next morning, every seat in the boardroom was occupied. The special committee sat along one side. North Star's attorneys waited near the windows. The bank had sent 2 observers. Priya stood beside a screen containing the evidence timeline. Elena and Maya had been admitted as witnesses, not advisors. Vanessa took her usual chair. Daniel remained standing. The vote to sell 8 hotels was scheduled for 7:59. The committee chair began by warning that the meeting would not become a trial. Only verified facts would be considered. Priya agreed. She started with Elena's handwritten log. "It is not an audit," she said. "It is a contemporaneous operational record." The pages were supported by time-stamped photographs, supply receipts, shift assignments, laundry invoices, and vendor signatures. The log had errors, but those errors were ordinary. They did not follow the pattern of the hidden rooms. Next came the door lock data. Thousands of entries had opened rooms classified as unavailable. City records showed occupancy taxes paid on many of those stays. Meridian records showed corporate guests had paid full rates. The hotels had not been empty. Their revenue had been separated from Mercer Crown's primary books. Vanessa's counsel objected to the word separated. "Use diverted if you prefer," Priya said. "The destination remains the same." She displayed the coal restitution reserve. $31 million remained in escrow. Then she showed the older 6-month period. More than 16 million had moved through 3 intermediaries. The final transfers matched 9 North Star capital calls. North Star's attorney said timing was not proof of common ownership. Priya nodded. That was true yesterday. The linked transfers triggered the bank's anti-fraud review. Overnight, a state judge granted an emergency disclosure order for Cedar Vale's beneficial ownership records. A representative from the family office administrator entered by secure video and produced the certificate. The document appeared on the screen. Vanessa Cole was the controlling beneficiary. She did not look away. Her lawyer asked whether the certificate proved that Mercer Crown money had entered Cedar Vale. "Not by itself," Priya said. She moved to the banking trace. The intermediary accounts had broken the payments into smaller transfers, but the originating reference numbers survived in the bank's internal reconciliation system. The Meridian settlement batches and Cedar Vale contributions shared the same source identifiers. Money generated by Mercer Crown rooms had funded Cedar Vale. Cedar Vale had funded North Star. North Star was trying to buy the same hotels after their financial condition had been made to look worse. The committee chair asked Vanessa whether she disputed the ownership certificate. "No." "Did you disclose that interest before recommending North Star?" "My interest was held through a private family structure. That was not the question. I did not disclose it." The answer was controlled, almost clinical. Her counsel argued that non-disclosure did not prove fraud. Vanessa could have believed North Star was the best buyer. The hotels were under real pressure. Some properties required renovation. Debt remained high. Priya did not disagree. The company had real problems. They were also made to appear worse. She displayed the ethics portal audit trail. Elena's report had been opened on Vanessa's executive device, reclassified, and closed within 11 minutes. Device logs showed biometric confirmation at 1:12 a.m. Vanessa said she sometimes authorized assistants to use her phone. The technical specialist answered that the reclassification required facial authentication after the device had been inactive for more than an hour. Vanessa's counsel objected again. The specialist did not speculate about who held the device. He only confirmed that Vanessa's face had unlocked it. Then Daniel presented Malcolm's encrypted message. "Retrieve the originals before they are misread again." Vanessa said she had wanted the records secured. "Why send Malcolm to a location shared only with your office?" Daniel asked. "Because I no longer trusted the evidence process. You tried to control it. I tried to prevent a housekeeper's private notes from destroying 11,000 jobs." Elena spoke before counsel could stop her. "My notes did not move the money." Vanessa turned toward her. "No, but they could have collapsed the sale before the company survived long enough to correct anything. You called my daughter dishonest. I called the record unaudited. You put vouchers in my locker. I did not." Malcolm had denied placing them as well. No direct evidence identified the person who had. Elena did not push beyond what she could prove. Instead, she placed the blue notebook on the table. "You said you were correcting what happened to your family. Then why did you need another family to carry the blame?" Vanessa's expression changed for the first time. Not enough to become confession. Enough to show the question had reached somewhere legal language could not protect. She looked at Daniel. "Your father took a hotel from people who had nowhere else to go. You inherited the buildings, the reputation, and the choice not to ask how they were acquired." Daniel did not deny it. I benefited from what he did. The directors shifted in their seats, he continued, and I trusted reports more than the workers who kept those buildings alive. I signed documents I did not read closely enough. I allowed your authority to grow because it made my life easier. His lawyer tried to interrupt. Daniel kept speaking. But the money in those rooms belonged to this company's employees, vendors, shareholders, and guests. You did not restore justice. You chose who would pay for it. Vanessa said North Star would have kept every hotel open. You could not guarantee that. I had influence. You hid ownership. Because you would never have agreed. That is what consent means. The committee chair ended the exchange and called for the vote. Before the ballots were recorded, North Star's attorney warned that suspension would trigger claims for expenses and might cause the offer to expire. The bank observers said they could not promise continued flexibility without a new operating plan. Daniel did not ask them to promise. He requested a 48-hour emergency liquidity review, preservation of every Meridian account, and direct notice to payroll vendors before any public statement was issued. The committee approved those measures alongside the suspension. The North Star transaction was suspended immediately. Cedar Vale's related accounts were placed under legal hold pending regulatory review. Vanessa was removed from financial authority and escorted to a private office for an interview with outside counsel and investigators. She was not arrested in the boardroom. The evidence still had to be tested beyond the company's walls. Before leaving, Vanessa looked at the worn ledger. You think this fixes the system? Elena closed the cover. No, it proves the system can be made to answer. At 8:26, the sales agreement remained unsigned. The hotels still had debt. Payroll was still approaching. Nothing had become easy. But for the first time in 14 months, Mercer Crown's official books showed every occupied room. 6 weeks later, Mercer Crown held a public ethics hearing in the same hotel where Elena had been suspended. This time, she entered through the front doors. Representatives from the bank, the Labor Council, outside audit, and the state financial regulator sat behind a table. The findings were read into the record. Meridian had concealed occupied rooms. Cedar Vale had received money traced to those rooms. Vanessa had failed to disclose her controlling interest in the buyer. Elena's ethics report had been improperly reclassified and closed. The vouchers found in her locker were removed from the company's case file after investigators confirmed the search had been backdated and the chain of custody could not be trusted. Investigators had also traced the blurred executive badge in Elena's kitchen photograph to the same compliance supervisor who entered the locker area with a master credential. Building records showed that he had used a false maintenance request to enter Elena's apartment 2 weeks earlier. They could not yet prove he had placed the vouchers, and the matter had been referred for criminal investigation. That uncertainty no longer belonged to Elena. The hearing chair cleared every disciplinary finding from her record and restored the wages she had lost. Rosa Vega and Lynn Tran had their warnings removed as well. Then Maya's name was entered into the official report, not as a trespasser, not as a disruptive child, as the first person to identify the numerical contradiction that led to the investigation. Daniel stood when his turn came. He did not speak about betrayal. He spoke about failure. I built a company that trusted titles before testimony, he said. I approved systems I did not understand, ignored workers I did not know, and mistook clean reports for honest ones. He looked toward Elena. You followed the process. We punished you for making it work. The apology was not private. It was recorded, distributed to employees, and attached to the board's findings. Elena accepted the correction, but not absolution. A cleared record does not return the months people called us thieves, she said. It only proves they were wrong. The hearing chair nodded. That is why this remains part of the record. When the session ended, Elena placed the blue notebook on the table beside the official audit. For the first time, both were stamped as evidence. 4 months later, Mercer Crown still had problems that no hearing could erase. 2 properties entered restructuring. Several vendors demanded shorter payment terms. The state financial regulator kept its investigation open, and Vanessa's attorneys challenged parts of the company's internal findings. Malcolm cooperated with investigators, but cooperation did not remove his responsibility. Daniel spent more time with lawyers than with guests. He also began attending the meetings he had once delegated. The first was held in a housekeeping training room instead of the executive suite. Elena sat near the center with representatives from laundry, maintenance, food service, front desk, and overnight security. Her new title was Housekeeping Operations Liaison. She had refused anything grander. I know rooms, she told Daniel. I do not know how to run 23 hotels. The role gave her access to system design meetings and the authority to stop policy changes that ignored how work was actually done. It did not remove her from the night staff completely. Twice a week, she still wore the same grey uniform and walked the floors with her team. Some employees treated her differently now. A few became too polite. Others avoided her, worried that anything they said might end up in an investigation. Recognition had not made belonging easier. Rosa Vega returned part-time after her warning was removed. The Lynn de Tran accepted back pay but chose another hotel. Neither woman wanted to be turned into a symbol. Maya went back to school. For the first few weeks, classmates repeated things they had seen online. Some called her the hotel detective. Others asked whether Daniel had bought her a house. He had not. Daniel offered a financial award for identifying the discrepancy. Maya refused. "My mum was right before I was," she said. Later, she agreed to join an employee family math mentorship program that already existed but had nearly lost its funding. She accepted only after Daniel promised not to rename it, photograph her for advertisements, or call her inspirational at a gala. She still did not trust him completely. Daniel did not ask her to. The company hired Priya to oversee an independent controls review. Every property now compared reservation data with door entries, tax filings, laundry usage, and room service activity. No single department could close an ethics report involving its own leadership. The changes were expensive. They were also slower than Daniel wanted. One afternoon, he complained that the new process required too many people to approve a simple correction. Elena looked at him across the table. "That is what friction feels like, when it protects someone other than you." He left the process unchanged. The old Mercer acquisitions were reviewed by an outside legal team. Several former owners came forward. Some claims had no supporting records, others did. Daniel authorized mediation in the strongest cases, including the Cole Harbor property, but refused to describe the process as charity. The company was not donating money. It was examining debts it might still owe. Claire, Daniel's adult daughter, attended one of the review sessions. Afterward, she told him that admitting failure in public did not repair the years he had been absent at home. "I know," he said. It was the first answer he gave without trying to improve it. At the flagship hotel, a new dashboard was tested during a Monday operations meeting. It showed occupancy, staffing, supplies, and revenue in real time. Daniel arrived early and found Elena placing her blue notebook beside the screen. "You still do not trust the system," he said. "I trust it to be a system. That sounds like a no. It sounds like experience." The meeting began. Halfway through, the dashboard reported 286 occupied rooms. Elena's handwritten count listed 289. No one panicked. The front desk manager checked the transfer log. 3 guests had changed rooms after midnight, and the update had not reached the dashboard yet. The difference was ordinary. That mattered. For months, every mismatch had felt like a threat. Now the company had learned that a discrepancy was not an accusation. It was a question that deserved an answer. Daniel corrected the report before the meeting moved on. Maya waited outside the glass wall after school, doing homework while Elena finished her shift. She looked up when Daniel placed the blue notebook in the center of the table beside the official report. The first time she had entered that room, 12 executives had needed a child to tell them the hotel was not empty. This time, no one needed her to interrupt. They were already listening.